Welcome back to another podcast episode where we help aspiring developers get jobs and junior developers grow. Today, we're going to be doing a review episode on Career Foundry. Now, unless I screwed it up, I could not find this on course reports. I was trying to dig for some reviews, but thankfully we have 3 graduates from Career Foundry that are going to tell us about their experiences. And like normal, we're going to go ahead and start with our intros. So Nicole, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Nicole Villa. I'm a graduate of Career Foundry. And right now, I decided to take the time off because of COVID to specialize into blockchain. And so I've been doing independent freelancing, working on my YouTube channel, and created a social token on Ethereum.
Wow. What's your YouTube channel?
It's under my name, Nicole Villa, NicoleVilla.
What do you talk about on it?
Right now, it's a mix of coding tutorials, business, and blockchain.
A lot of topics. Interesting. Okay. I'm excited to see how that works. I have one more question for you because I keep asking a bunch. Where did you come from before you went into the coding bootcamp? Like what industry?
I actually was hopping through low paid jobs, and I was going to school for accounting. And I realized that the accounting degree was really expensive, but if blockchain's accounting, a new type of accounting, and the old type of accounting is going to go away, I left school for that. So I wasn't technically in a career. I was just making sure that I was in jobs, like I was in food service, and then I did, security dispatching. And the security dispatching we were a data warehouse as well. So I didn't realize that I was exposed to cybersecurity because of that job. And then the mix with, me going to school for accounting to try to, actually have a career. So when I met blockchain, that's the reason I left school in 2016. So I didn't really have a career.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I guess you would still call it a career. I don't know. I guess do careers have to be like very linear?
I consider a career like something that you worked in like at least 1 or 2 years, and I didn't really do that.
Fair enough. All right. Well, thanks for sharing. For me, I was a software engineer for a few years, 3 different companies, and then I quit my company to start my own company, helping software engineers grow. And that's pretty much what I do full time now. And that's it. Pretty boring. I keep repeating it, and it just sounds more boring the more I talk about it. But Hunter, I want to hear about you. Tell me about you.
Sure, yeah. So I went to college for accounting as well. So you have to sit for the CPA exam, which you have to get 150 credits for. So then I did my extra 30 credits, which usually undergrad's 120, so you need an extra 30 to sit for the exam. And I did CIS, which kind of gave me like a exposure to programming. And then I actually worked for the university. I graduated from doing PeopleSoft. I'm sure you guys have never heard of it. It's a Oracle product, kind of a CRM. So, the managing a ton of customers and in an institution style CRM. So you're trying to, have financial aid as considerations and, this proprietary coding language called People Code. But it came out that Oracle is saying, okay, we're not going to support this in 10 years. And I was like, well, this is my whole skill set right now. So I need to branch out. Then I decided to do Career Foundry, the web development bootcamp, just to kind of get on the cutting edge and move away from something that's being phased out. So,
okay.
Yeah.
How's the job search going?
It went well. Yeah, I found a job in August. I finished up the course in July with the whole job prep section of the Career Foundry curriculum. And I found a job in August and started in late September.
Okay. Really cool. Congrats. That's awesome.
Thanks.
How about you? Is it Teresa?
Yes.
How about you?
Yeah, well, I have a pretty crazy story. I'm an opera singer turned developer. So I was out on the East Coast for about 12 years attempting a career in opera performance, which is tough. So I worked about like 10 different side jobs trying to make the bills meet, my ends meet, and just was not being fulfilled, and was just drowning in debt, and knew I needed to make some sort of a change. So I was working as an administrative assistant at a university out in Connecticut, and they had me manage their website, even though they didn't give me any instructions. They just kind of gave me their CMS and was like, okay, we want it to look like this, have at it, best of luck. And so it kind of just piqued my interest in development then, and I kept researching it, and I would do like some different prep boot camps to see if it was a good fit. And yeah, long story short, I ended up enrolling with Career Foundry. I graduated in October, and still in the job hunt. Yeah.
Very cool. Wow. So you definitely got exposure to actual work that provided people value as a developer early?
A little bit, yeah. Brushed the surface, but it definitely piqued my interest.
Okay, so that was the moment that you decided. Interesting. All right, very cool. Well, I like hearing about different backgrounds, and also people bug me that I need to ask this question more. So thanks for sharing. Okay, let's dive into it. What do you think of the application process?
I thought it was pretty straightforward. I think the biggest challenge for me was picking which bootcamp, because there's just so many. The selling point for me was because it was a flex plan, and I was still working at the time. And I knew
What's
I was going to be
the flex plan?
It was that you could do it on your own timeline. So you didn't have any deadlines. You didn't have to finish it by, well, you did, but it was a long time that they give you. But I knew I was going to be moving at the same time too. And this was pre-pandemic, so I was considering doing in-person boot camps. But I think with the flex and total virtual and kind of the price range and reviews and stuff led me to this one.
Okay. Was it pretty similar for you too?
Yeah. So I like that they had the different plans for sure. And I don't know who you, Nicole, and Teresa were talking with, but there's a guy, Derek, that I was talking to about, different payment plans, and he came up with if you pay a lump sum now or within the next 2 weeks, you can get this percentage off. So I was like, yeah, looks good to me. But in terms of picking the boot camp, it was more of what was the cheapest one that offered the most value and had a job guarantee. Those were kind of my 3 criteria there. Because in the end, you want to have a boot camp that holds their value accountable or their offering accountable. So I thought, I was looking at the other boot camps, and they were averaging over 10,000, and Career Foundry was the only one that was maybe, in a lump sum was around 5 or 6, something like that. I don't quite remember the exact amount, but it was equitable, and it had the job guarantee, and it was, I did see some reports and people were pretty happy with it. So I was like, yeah, let's try this one.
Okay.
Yeah, it was about the same for me as well. I saw that they had the job guarantee, and also a lot of other boot camps. I had considered a boot camp as early as 2017, and it was, 10,000 back then. And then when I wanted to go into it, I had just left school, and I had a settlement from an accident, and I was just kind of like, do I want to spend the 10,000? And later, I had found out a lot of these boot camps, they don't create their own curriculum. They use a lot of free resources. They only pay for the teachers, and the quality of it's not that good, because I went to a hackathon in Puerto Rico, and my team actually won. And I started going to a boot camp there. And the thing is that they were doing this, and I didn't realize that it was so common. And that's what the boot camp in Wisconsin actually was doing was that I actually found out because like I went to hackathons, I went to community and code meetups first, because I wanted to be really sure that, you know, if I'm going to make a career out of this, I want to make sure that like I'm spending my money in the right place. And so I had started self-teaching for 8 months, and it was becoming difficult because it doesn't seem like there's a big community for self-taught developers. And I felt really isolated. And Career Foundry actually, like when I had started it, you know, they had the community, you know, the Slack channel, they had the, you know, the career guarantee, and it didn't seem like they were just being shoddy with their curriculum. They actually have a really nice platform. So in hindsight, when I was going through the struggle of trying to find the right boot camp, I see that like, you know, Career Foundry actually does stick out and with the payment plans. And a part of my problem was that I felt stupid because there's other boot camps, but they require you to be a certain level of developer, and they're very strict about how you get in. Like Flatiron, you have to have a certain level. I wasn't up to par for, you know, Flatiron. I wasn't up to par for some of these other ones. Like the other ones are really good, but they're also really expensive. So that's where I was at.
Okay. It's interesting. So I asked how the application process was going, and everyone told me why. They talked about it a little bit, but they told me why they chose this coding bootcamp. And I like that more. I think I might actually change the way I do these episodes, because I think people want to know why you picked that coding bootcamp. It's a really interesting question. So first of all, thank you for that. Secondly, it sounds like, okay, so it is a cheaper coding bootcamp, and it sounds like they had multiple plans. Do you feel like they were very honest in terms of what it would cost? Okay. So I had one more question, and I completely forgot. I've been doing recordings all day, but that's okay. I'm going to skip it. So it sounds like Career Foundry made, I remember now. So it sounds like it was very accessible, and they didn't have a higher standard of getting in. Do you feel like everyone was on the same level when they went into the curriculum, or was it like siloed where you were just doing the content, you weren't working with other people? Or if you were working with other people, were you kind of at the same skill levels?
Do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, you would work on your own unless you want to get hook up with a buddy on Slack and do things together that way. I just worked on my own, so I had no idea kind of what other levels people were at. Okay.
So it's a self-paced program.
Yeah.
And they really lean on that. Interesting. Okay. I think that was my main question. Sorry, Nicole, did you have something to say?
I was basically going to say the same thing, but like I had been self-teaching for 8 months. That I think a lot of people come from a lot of different backgrounds, and you don't know where somebody's at, because like even though I had been self-teaching for 8 months, there were people who knew more than me, and they were able to knock out certain parts easier. And I'm just kind of like, whoa, I'm like, yes, I get it that I'm able to do front end better, but like, yeah, everybody was at a different pace. And it's kind of like, even though there's a low barrier to entry, it's good because the program's long enough versus a 3 month and that was the part like where I was really glad, when I started researching these boot camps, if you're self-paced and you have a short boot camp, there's no way you're usually going to, I don't think they could offer a job guarantee if their boot camp was shorter, because these boot camps are chugging out 3 month students, 0 to proficient, and they're hiding the reviews. And as far as I know, Career Foundry hasn't been really doing that. So it's self-paced. The content's already created. You don't really have instructors, right? Or do you?
You have a mentor and a tutor throughout the whole process.
Interesting. I like that. I don't That's really interesting. Okay, so I see why it's so cheap. I see where they cut the expenses. That makes sense to me. I'm kind of curious what they teach. Okay, I think we're ready for it. Let's dive into the curriculum. What did they actually teach you?
So I think it's like most other boot camps, or at least the ones when I was watching your videos, they start out with HTML, CSS, and they actually break that whole HTML, CSS section into like a separate curriculum. So your first month, you're in the intro to front end, and you're learning HTML, CSS, and you're making your own website from that, like your own portfolio website, just strictly out of that. So I think it helped that first month you're just learning CSS and HTML. At least I did the 8-month program. I don't know what you two did, but my first month was just that. And then the second month is the full stack immersion, which is then you're learning, React, Angular, JavaScript, and then a ton of backend as well, like MongoDB, Firebase, trying to remember, like, Express, Node, stuff like that. And that's like, the 7 month, you're in it for the long haul, like learning, you're having to submit assignments every week. And what I really liked about Career Foundry is, like, right when you log in, right on the landing page, it's like, bam, this is how much time you have left, and this is where you are. And I really like that part, because like you always want to make sure you're a little bit ahead of like how much time you had left in terms of how much you had completed at that point. So yeah, it was just like all about milestones and making sure you're staying ahead of the amount of time you had left.
Okay. If I was younger, I don't think I'd have that mindset. I think I would be less than what I needed to be, like right below. They have to cap you, right? Of like how long you actually have to complete it. Okay. Okay, so you have to, do they like reach out to you if you're falling behind? I don't know if anyone's falling behind, if they want to talk about this, but like, do they reach out to you and try to get you going a little bit faster?
Well, I think it depends on the mentor you had. Mine I met with after I finished every achievement, and then we'd kind of go over like where I was in the timeline and how I was doing. And I don't know. What do you guys have to say about that?
I mean, if you log in, sorry, go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, I would agree that it depends on the mentor. And I actually had to switch mentors twice. I had no problems with the tutors. I actually really liked my tutors. But I would say that that's one thing, is that like maybe like, so for me, I'll give full disclosure, I was working on my business at the same time. I wouldn't recommend it, because you have competing priorities. Like if I need to do something with, legal or whatever, like it's like the business tells me what to do. So I was able to buy extensions, and that's helpful, but also it depends, because when I found out that I was having the issues with the tutors, that I had the career prep coach reach out to me, and he was just like, oh yeah, like I found out that a lot of the mentors and tutors, they aren't employees of Career Foundry. So they're hiring contractors online. I'm not saying that they don't have, they have talented mentors and tutors. I will say that, compared to other boot camps that, like the one I did in Puerto Rico, or some of the other ones where they have more issues. I would say that like they're good about that, but I had some issues, and I had to switch out, mentors. I forgot what I was getting at, but I was, I think that was it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think that's really good. Let's dive into it. I'm kind of curious if you want to share the reason why you had to do that. But one thing, you're right. Business dictates everything. I haven't coded in like 2 months, because I just business dictates, what you need to do. So I completely understand that. Okay, so you have a mentor that helps you. So you have a self-paced curriculum that you study online. You have a mentor that helps you, that checks in after you achieve something, after you complete something. If you are stuck technically, if you need someone to dive into the code with you, are they technically proficient to be able to do that?
Yes.
The tutors are, yeah.
but not the mentors.
Well, the mentors are too, but you would go to the tutors first to get help on like any technical issues that you're having. If for some reason you need even more help, you could always contact your mentor if you needed to, but the tutors were usually the ones to help with that.
Okay, gotcha. What do you think of the actual curriculum?
I mean, I haven't done another boot camp, so it's hard to kind of compare. It goes over so much, and I would say, how do I say this? I feel like you couldn't, and I've heard this on one of your other interviews, but you can't like graduate and just be done and ready. Like, it's just the beginning of your learning process, and like, you won't go through the program and have a complete thorough understanding on every single language that they talk about. You have to like continue your progress through that. I think they laid it out really well, and I really liked how every achievement was like something you could add to your portfolio, like another app or another site. It really set us up well, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so when you say, because I've talked about this many times, when you say you can't graduate and then be ready, just like that, be ready for what?
A job, like a full-time developer job. I think it unless you can really take your time throughout the whole program and keep learning on the side and keep, researching what you really don't understand and really haven't comprehended fully. At least for me, by the time I finished the program, I had to keep learning and keep like researching things that I realized I didn't have a really thorough knowledge on. And that's not necessarily the program's fault. Maybe I just didn't take enough time during it. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you agree?
I'm curious.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, the curriculum was fast. It was like, it went over a lot. And, I would try to ask the tutor, I don't quite understand this part. And, he'd go and research it. And then like, sometimes I'd never hear back, but he'd always approve the program. It's just like those kind of finer details where they kind of like would lay out, it was like copy and paste. A lot of it was, here's the code, put it in your app and here it runs, boom. And you're like, well, I don't really understand how that works or why that works that way. So then I think that's where people really stood out, is when they went and researched, like Teresa said, like I don't know what's going on here, and it's going to take my tutor a while to help me, and I'm on a deadline. I don't want to, get more extensions or whatever. So yeah, there was a lot of times where they didn't really explain it. They just said, here's the code, put it in, you're done. And you have your app, and like, you should feel good about that. And a lot of times I walked away not feeling great about it. So, but in terms of the curriculum, I think that was the original question, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought the React part was really, really good. They spent the majority of the course on React. Honestly, I feel like they could have cut out all of the Angular in Vue.
Yeah.
I can understand why they had it in there. They just want to be like, hey, we're going to throw another framework at you, make it work. I'm sure that somewhat parallels your job. Like, hey, here's another framework, figure it out. And they're just trying to get you ready for that. But it also, to me, felt like a waste of time when it's like, React is the framework, the web UI framework right now. And at least the most popular, and with so limited time, you should only be focusing on what's the most employable or the most sought after by employers. So I thought they did a good job of React. Like the last 4 milestones were all React, and, making sure your React app worked with Firebase or MongoDB or things like that. And I just fell in love with React, and I was like, in Career Foundry, I wouldn't have done that without it. So, it's really hard to navigate the web as a self-taught. I think what Career Foundry did the most for me with the curriculum was give me a roadmap. Like, what is this? What is good right now? What is hot? What is going to get me a job? I don't know. Career Foundry does. That's the feeling I got. So I kind of put my faith in that they were teaching me all the stuff that's what employers are looking for. And I just dedicated my time to that. Whenever they didn't explain something well enough, or, I was like, okay, I need to figure this out because this is important. So curriculum was good. I thought just a lot of it, just like the slight copy and paste parts were kind of got me thrown off and not feeling too solid and confident. So.
Okay. Okay. I have thoughts. Nicole, before I do though, similar experience, or do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that I have a different opinion on this. I mean, not really. I have the same opinion, but a different view is what I meant, because I was working on an education project in cryptocurrency before I started this. So when I had left school, I didn't expect to get funding for a project. And it was nice because I had 2 developers in Chicago working on the MVP, the minimum viable product. And then I was self-teaching because I'm kind of like, crypto winter. Facebook and Google were suppressing, advertising for cryptocurrency. So I was kind of like, am I going to continue with this idea? And so having a little bit of, focus on education with the program, I was probably able to articulate where I was struggling, why, but I didn't know the full why. I was kind of like, I think this is the problem. And they're kind of like, yes. So in the program, when I realized that I was accruing technical debt, I think I was accruing technical debt on Node. Node is where I struggled. And when I realized that the modules because I was overlooking the curriculum, and I was kind of like, something that's at the end of the boot camp should actually be further up, because I was also struggling on GitHub. I was struggling on GitHub really bad, and I feel like they should have gone over GitHub more in the beginning. They should have laid the foundations of some modules. It's not that they didn't cover them. That's not it at all. I just think a lot of things that were in, module 4 could have been moved up, because they should have moved the advanced ECMAScript 6 up, because they had advanced JavaScript at the end. But if we did JavaScript in the beginning, move that up. Otherwise, the curriculum was really good. I just felt strongly that they probably should have removed Angular and some other things, because it felt like we were just rushing through it. And otherwise, I would say it's still a really good curriculum.
Okay. I'm just processing. Okay, so let's go back to your original question, Teresa. It wasn't a question, it was almost a statement that you made, that you feel like, or that you got out of my podcast, that a coding boot camp could not prepare you for a job. You weren't job ready once you graduated. You had to continue to supplement. So this isn't anything against you or anyone else, and it's more, this really challenges the coding boot camp to deliver on this. It is 100% possible for a coding boot camp to have you job ready. 100% possible. And so if you feel like you've had to supplement, and some of the things you're sharing, and I'm going to go into more detail, but if you feel like you had to supplement, maybe that's something that the coding bootcamp needs to take a closer look at. And you had mentioned it. This is the first coding bootcamp where you learn React, Angular, and Vue. I would be really curious why they made that decision. If you're learning different, if you're trying to be more marketable, I think it's a waste of time. I think React is going to make you plenty marketable, and you can get a job working with Vue or Angular with React knowledge. Just the fact that you learn the conventions, or like why a framework even exists. What benefits does it bring? What challenges does it bring? And I think you can learn that with a single framework. So if you feel like you're advancing through that and you feel like it's going too quickly and you're not like really retaining it, or you felt like it was a waste of time, and even if you had like a little bit of an inkling that you should just focus on React, you want to get stronger with it, I think you have the right idea there. And I question why the coding bootcamp does that. I think it's a bad idea. I don't know why they do that. So I'd be really curious to hear. So what that allows you to do is focus more on the fundamentals. It sounds like they're already really strong with React. It sounds like Node might have been a challenging portion as well. Maybe they could have spent more time with Node. Maybe they could have, like, I'm not sure why they ordered things the way they did with JavaScript, but maybe, Nicole, your suggestion is a really good one. But the part that really scares me is there's going to be no perfect curriculum. And it's a very hard thing for a coding bootcamp to deliver a curriculum where someone feels like they retained everything. That almost never happens. But what they should not be doing is when you come to them for that help, where they just deliver you this snippet of code and say, put it in. It works, without actually walking you through line by line if you really need that understanding. And it sounds like maybe some mentors do, maybe some don't. All of you had mentioned it depends on the mentor. You hinted towards that several times. So that worries me. And I think maybe that's a result of them having the tuition so low. And, like I talked about it, I'm going to be releasing episode this Friday. I talked to CEO of New Camp where his coding bootcamp is $2,000. And I challenged, like, what are you, like, taking out of your coding bootcamp? You probably stripped everything. And he gave me a lot of really good insight into what's being stripped to be able to bring that tuition that low. So obviously with the tuition that low, any coding bootcamp really, you make trade-offs with what you can afford. Maybe if I'd be curious, like, you're just 3 students. I'd be curious what other people's opinions are. But if you feel like you aren't job ready by the time you come out of that coding bootcamp, maybe it's just a feeling, maybe it's your own confidence. But in my opinion, like, I don't know. I guess I'm going back and forth between this because it's almost like a self-paced program with mentorship. Or like a self-taught program with mentorship. Something like Team Treehouse is like has their courses, has their instructors, and then like maybe tosses a mentor to help you weekly or something like that. So it's really interesting that they guarantee a job with a tuition this low. And Hunter, we're going to dive more into this. You know what? Maybe this is the time to do it. You had brought me some links and some like really heavy requirements on that job guarantee, like the specific fine details of that. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I know that this is a podcast, so screen sharing is not really going to help unless people are watching on your YouTube channel. But
yeah, let's just talk.
If you want to screen share it or whatnot, we can go through it.
Do you want to
maybe talk about it?
Yeah, let's spend just like 5 minutes talking about it.
Yeah, sure. Here, let me just pull it up on my...
Without... Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, because the audio, there won't be any screen share, so that's why I want to avoid it.
Yeah, gotcha. So I'm going to the terms and conditions for Career Foundry, and their condition 15 is satisfaction guarantee. And they have, I'm scrolling, probably about 4 or 5 pages worth of reading in terms of what you have to do to meet their job guarantee. I can start going through the bullets if you'd like.
Give me 5. Like,
okay. Let me just like look for some good ones here.
Yeah, because we're just winging it here, so we'll just see what comes up.
Yeah, so Career Foundry guarantees its users that he or she will get a job in the field within 6 months of completion of the program. Otherwise, its users are to reclaim 100% of the respective course fee from Career Foundry. So that's our very first point. And then it says, users must respond to contact from their career specialist within 72 hours. Users respond to employers, and our job posting is introduced individually to the user by the user's career specialist within 72 hours. So, any job that your career specialist gives you, you have to apply to it. Whether it's, it may not be even something you want to work in, which I didn't really appreciate. User has to apply to at least 5 jobs per week during the job search period with supporting documentation serving as proof of application in the form of written applications tailored to the specific job postings, screenshots of exchanges and or email exchanges with employers. So every time I applied to a job, I had to have a tailored resume that I saved. I had to save the job posting. I'd have to keep the email exchanges that I would have. I have to keep all those on file.
Okay, let's pause there. None of this so far sounds bad. I don't like the idea that we're starting to get into like rough waters of what you have to accept as a position. Yeah. It should be aligned to becoming a developer if that's what you went to the coding boot camp. As one concern I have, I actually have a few questions for you. Do you feel like you've read like all 5 pages and have like a kind of a summary of like what they're expecting? Okay.
I didn't sign up for this course without reading that. So I knew going in that I was probably going to kiss this course fee goodbye, based on that. So, I was like, I was hopeful. I was like, this is a job guarantee. I know they're going to do everything they can to make sure I do get one, but I was never going to like be holding and clinging on to that $5 or $6 grand that I paid.
Okay. All right. That's useful insight. All right. Let me ask a few questions. What's the furthest type of job away from becoming a developer that you would be forced to accept? Yeah.
So I mean, there was ones on their websites that they would always recommend, things that aren't even in the US because they are a Berlin-based company. So I don't think they ever actually forced me to apply to those, but there was ones that were just like UI designer or, stuff that's like HTML and CSS only. And you're like, dude, I just learned React and, all this back end stuff. And you want me to completely cut out all those skills and just work as it was just like a UX kind of stuff where it's like, I didn't even learn any of this stuff. And, it felt like there was a little bit of disconnect between the career specialist's idea of what job you're trying to look for and the job you should be looking for with the skills that you're learning in the boot camp.
Okay.
So I felt like there was a little bit of like, maybe I thought the job specialist could have been, or it was like your career. I can't remember the right term that they used, but they assigned you somebody in your job prep course that, it just kind of felt like they didn't know exactly what each program jobs requirements like that these applicants should be looking for. I'm trying to like word that right, but
Nicole, just so I want to be conscientious of the time that we have left. Nicole, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that with the contractors, all of our mentors and tutors for me, they were in different time zones. And that was difficulty was coordinating because my job prep person, I think he was based out of Italy or something. And, this boot camp's in Berlin. So if I send an email to the student advisors, it's going to be on a different time zone. I'm in, Wisconsin, Chicago time zone. And with, I think when he was saying it was like the jobs not being tailored, that's because they're not employees. I found out that they're contractors. And so it does remove a liability if one of these mentors or tutors does say or do something offensive. And that was kind of like my problem, that I had screenshotted this stuff and I nipped it in the bud. I brought it on head on and I had a contest with my bank, an extension that I had paid for that I need to get a refund for. But yeah, I would say that that's really the only bad thing I have to say. But because I was going to say about the curriculum wise too, is that when you have to drop the price, Career Foundry actually does a good job of keeping the value for the price. Let me say that, because in Puerto Rico, the boot camp that I had won at the hackathon was about $1,500, and all the people graduating were not job ready. That was a big difference, is because for that price, you're paying literally for the price of an instructor. and other students were desperate to work as a software developer, but they're in an area where in the US, we have more opportunities because if you're from a different country, you're going to get lowballed per your area, kind of like the issue with remote working right now.
I feel like we're like starting to branch off on like a lot.
Oh, I can stop then.
Let's come back to this because I want to hear this. Just so I can like refocus on like the actual terms that we're agreeing to.
Yeah.
But we'll summarize this. This is good. So thank you. Okay. So like it seems like there's definitely kind of a discrepancy with how the interactions have gone with some mentors, right? And I think that's really important to recognize. Now, I just have a couple more questions as far as like this job placement guarantee. So it sounds like you have 6 months or you get your refund. It sounds like you could accept a UX or designer position. And if you don't get your refund, which 100% disagree with that. That's very, very misleading, especially if they're not advertising that, but they're advertising the job placement. That's sketchy. I don't like that, in my opinion. So what I would ask is, so you have to document everything. That makes sense. Screenshots. I agree with all that. I completely understand that. Now, do you have to, like, they probably have like a salary that you have to accept, right?
No. I think it's just if they offer you a job and you say no, then you lose the guarantee.
So if they offer you a designer job for $40,000 a year, maybe when you're living in a big city like Chicago, you have to accept?
Yes. If they get wind that you were offered a job and you denied it in the field of web development, that's actually a good point. I don't know if it's even in the if they're saying if you have to get it in the field. I mean, you're hopefully applying to jobs that you want to get. So I mean, if they offer you something and you say no, and Career Foundry gets wind of that, they will not give you your return.
So if they offer you a $10,000 job, you have to accept it.
I mean,
you're starting to see the problem with this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I see the problem with it. But
I don't know if anyone would really do that. I think that depends on the career mentor then. I mean, I can't imagine having a career mentor who's like overseas because the job market is so different here. So that must have been so tough. I was lucky to have one that was, in Oregon. So she kind of knew what to look for, but she never pressured anything on me that wasn't in my path. I mean, it was more of like a conversation. To be honest, she didn't really send me many job postings at all. I think there was only like 1 or 2 times she's like, you should reach out to this person. And it was fine. I think it just depends on the mentor.
Okay. And so, it probably is on the mentor to hold you accountable for that. But if they don't have it in their terms of service with a minimum salary, like that's really sketchy. Because like if they are that confident, like if they pretty much have mentors where they feel confident that they're looking out for you and they don't actually back that up, because like if it's in the contract, that's what matters. Not what your mentor says or does, not how they act. It's what they actually promise. And that needs to be listed in their contract, because if they take you to court for anything, they're going to win it. It doesn't matter how nice your mentor was. It doesn't matter how kind or what they promised. Verbal agreements mean nothing. Like almost nothing. So it sounds like you have to hope for a good mentor. It sounds like you have to hope for a mentor that's not like just trying to pressure you into a position that's going to end up screwing you over. That's important to recognize. So what I would encourage Career Foundry to do, and maybe this information is all inaccurate, I highly recommend staff to reach out to me and correct some of this if you feel like wrong, but it sounds like, Hunter, you're just reading off of their terms of service. This needs to be in the contract. Most coding bootcamps will have a minimum salary that you have to accept in order to get like income shared agreements approved or refunds approved. They need to step their game up with that. That's scary. And I think if you're going into this coding bootcamp, my recommendation, don't expect your money back. That's like my big recommendation. Do not accept this coding bootcamp for that promise alone. I would not trust it. And that's my opinion. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'll just go a little bit further with that and just say that
one more. Yeah, go ahead.
You have to be physically located in a 200,000 population city and be applying in a city that has over 200,000 people living there.
Okay. Okay. So people can, I wonder if I want to link this. People can link their terms of service. Now, keep in mind, I challenge this, but it's not like I don't have this vendetta against Career Foundry. And I think when I introduce like some of these challenges, students can be a little like they step back and they're like, whoa, I actually like this is a good experience. I'm not saying it was a bad experience, but everyone should have a transparent vision of what. Hold on. I'm going to have to mute. You didn't hear it at this really, really loud YouTube subscription alert that just went off my ears. And I know people in the podcast are going to hear it. So I'm going to have to silence that. So, completely lost my train of thought. But anyways, okay. So what I'm doing is I want to provide a transparency, a window into exactly what they legally have to deliver on. And to me, like if I was going into it, I would not trust that at all. Like I'd put that money aside, that money, like I'm going to not expect to get that back. Now, if you can do that, it sounds like it's pretty affordable. It sounds like as long as you get a good mentor, and it sounds like they're willing to trade out mentors if you're not having a good experience, that, for the curriculum, it sounds like the curriculum's longer than a lot of other coding boot camps. But I would be very careful about this job guarantee. I think you need to be, hopefully I really delivered on this. Okay, so we talked about that. I wanted to dive into it a little bit. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I'm glad you brought it up, Hunter. I'm glad you messaged me about it. I think like one of the final things before we dive into like how they helped you get a job is like, you talked about mentors. You talked about them delivering different experiences. You talked about tutors being a little bit more technically proficient. So we don't have instructors. We're not going to talk about the instructors, but overall, like what was your experience with the mentors? Let's summarize that.
My mentor was great. I'm not sure if Teresa had Alexis or Nicole had Alexis, but she was really good. She was in the industry, had been working for years with React, and she was brutally honest about. Sorry, oven's going off. She was brutally honest about, this sucks. You need to fix this. You need to change that. I mean, I'm pretty good at receiving constructive criticism. If someone was not, I don't think they would have enjoyed this mentor very much, but I was loving it. I was like, yeah, I need to, like, as soon as she says it and I see it and I was like, okay, I can see, cause like she had an eye for UI, which I was really trying to improve on, and just being a good developer. And, I thought it was great. She had a video. So like you did milestones. So you get 5 times where they would just like completely rip apart your project and tell you how to improve it from an industry expert. And I thought that was the most valuable thing about the Career Foundry offering, was just those 5 hours, that total 5 hours of her time talking through what needs to be improved from an industry expert. And I was like, yeah, that was the biggest value for me from the course, that in the curriculum. But I had a great experience. I'm sorry to hear that Nicole didn't.
Well, shout out to her, but go ahead, Nicole.
Okay. So we are talking about the experience overall. I kind of forgot the question.
That's okay. Experience with mentors and tutors.
Mentors.
Yeah.
It really depends. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend going through a boot camp with a business. I wouldn't. I was accepted as an Ethereum DevCon scholar. I wasn't going to turn down that opportunity. So I took the trip to Japan in October 2019. I started the boot camp in August. I was on track, but I also was self-teaching a little bit. So I luckily, I finished out the boot camp, but I didn't take them up on their job career opportunity anyway, because I was lucky enough to, I've been in the underpaid entrepreneurial role. So it's not like, I really, I was supposed to move to Austin on a loan I'm still living with my mom right now, but I'm slated to move to Austin after I've gotten some independent freelancing contracts because I've been more in the entrepreneurial mode. I would have been more upset if I was going the traditional career route and I didn't dedicate my life over to becoming a blockchain developer in the end. So after the boot camp, I'm glad that I didn't have to go the job hunting through the COVID because I had the issues with the mentors. And I would say my tutors, like, I think that like with the mentors, and from when I went through it, I think they upped the amount of calls you can take with the mentors. That was a difficult thing, was not having enough calls with the mentors and that they didn't know you personally enough as your tutor did. So I would say that was really the thing, but I believe that they've changed that stuff now.
Okay, cool. How about you, Teresa?
I was lucky to have a great mentor too. He actually graduated from the same program 5 years ago. So it was kind of interesting to hear his journey to where he is today, where he's very successful now. But he's mostly in working in like the back end, and I'm kind of geared more towards front end. So it was kind of nice actually to get that because the back end is where I really struggled, and he was there to help me through all of that, which was great. His big thing was like really helping me to talk at a high level, which is something that I really struggled about. Like I suffer from imposter syndrome hugely. So just being like confident enough to like speak technically was a huge issue for me, which he really helped a lot with. And even now, I mean, I graduated in October. I have an interview coming up and he's doing a mock interview with me tomorrow. So he's still a part of my life and very supportive and, will do anything for me. So he's been a great contact to have in general. So I lucked out with him.
Sounds like a really good experience.
Yeah.
I hope every student gets that experience. Okay, well, maybe we could dive into like the last part of it. What kind of job assistance do they provide? Do they continue providing that mentorship at the same level once you graduate? What was that like after you graduated?
That probably is the same thing. It just depends on the mentor. Sorry.
No.
Same answer, but I mean, my career mentor is still working with me. I check in with her every 2 weeks. She did a mock interview with me last week. She's my biggest supporter. So I think it just depends.
Okay. Pretty similar experiences?
Yeah. So once I finished the course in June, there's about 2 months there, I was trying to just keep coding, keep learning, and my mentor was willing to hop on and kind of still critique the things that I'm doing, like with my portfolio or things like that. So, like Teresa said, it seems like it's per the mentor kind of willingness to continue after their contractual deadline is passed, just kind of out of the goodness of their heart, they're going to either continue or not.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like some really want to see you succeed. So I think that Career Foundry has found, a lot of good mentors for that, that just kind of have that mindset of wanting to see the people that they've been mentoring for the past 8 months find a job and succeed and, kind of make a protege into a working professional.
Yeah, and maybe that's the key. They've been your mentor the entire time, and this is a long curriculum. And to be able to carry that mentor over, hopefully they were a good mentor. As long as they were a good mentor, carry that mentor over when you graduate. It sounds like they're invested in you doing well. They probably care. They really do. So that's good to hear. Okay, so we talked about the mentors a lot. We're going to move on from that. I think I have a good feel for the application process and what this coding bootcamp is trying to attract. I highly recommend anyone really I wouldn't recommend you apply for the job guarantee. Even just like you said, it was 5 pages, just what you listed to me. I'm really skeptical. So be willing to put that money aside. And I think you're going to have a really a good time. It's going to be something that you don't really have to worry about, because Hunter, as you talked about in some of your messages, like a lot of like the promises they expect you, or a lot of the stipulations for it, is going to be added stress on top of a curriculum that you're already trying to comprehend and everything like that. So if you can set money aside, maybe that's the best way to go about this. But then you talked about the mentors. Like a good instructor, a good mentor can make or break a coding bootcamp. So as long as they're willing to constantly provide that feedback to mentors, and they're able to switch out a mentor that's really going to connect with you and that knows you and cares about you well, that just kind of syncs up with you. And Teresa, you also mentioned this idea, like, my tutor was back-end focused. I was front-end focused. It actually supplemented me well. And maybe that's something they purposely did. I don't know. You don't think so?
No, I don't think so, because I didn't know that until I was like halfway through the program.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so we talked about it. We summed everything up. And before we end off with that, what constructive criticism would you have for the coding bootcamp? What would you want to see them improve? Feel free to take a minute to think about it.
I could say one thing off the top of my head. I don't think, debugging is such a big thing in this world. And I feel like they barely brush on how to use the different debugging tools. And I felt like my tutor kind of just expected me to know how to use everything. And he would get kind of upset with me if I didn't figure it out on my own. But if they could go in more depth on that, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one I didn't even think about. I was self-taught on that. And it seems like, that might just be a for now kind of thing, but I really wish they went into functional React. It was all class-based, if I remember correctly. And that's, it seems like the React development team is moving away from class-based development, or like the class components. They're moving more into the React hooks and functional, considerations, and it's a lot cleaner, a lot less code. So, and maybe next year they'll have that, and that'll be great. But it seemed like for 2020, people are migrating to functional React, and that seemed like a good next step for their curriculum.
I think that's a good suggestion. A lot of coding bootcamps are lacking on that. A lot of coding bootcamps are moving over, and a lot of them are taking too long to do it. So I think that's really good advice. How about you, Nicole? Anything that comes to mind?
I would say probably the curriculum is the most thing, is that they're trying to cram too much. I didn't like having to shove through TypeScript, especially if I'm not going to be, I'm only considering TypeScript because of a new language that's coming out in smart contracting, but that's the only reason why. I want to make sure that I'm a master at a few languages, or at least frameworks. And so that's where I'm kind of coming off. It's I'm lucky enough to have had my business. The business is changing. So I don't have the business right now. It's becoming something else. And so I think that it's really the curriculum, because I'm not really going to use Vue people use it, but like I said, it's I'm actually taking another JavaScript bootcamp, mini bootcamp from Clever Programmer, because I bought JavaScript books, and yeah, you have to supplement, because if they're not going to go over everything. So I've spent hundreds in books, and I got a JavaScript book that's this thick, so I can really master it, because I don't feel like I'm a master at it. But I also, like I said, I had competing priorities. I actually was able to focus on the boot camp more than a student that was working at the time did. So I can say that I probably, I know that I can get a job, but I had more time, and I was in a different situation than somebody who was working at the time. And if I was working at the time, I don't know how the heck I would be job ready. But I think that that's like any boot camp, is that like some of the most successful people from the boot camps, they're saying it's like, oh, you know, I put in like 60 to 80 hours a week. And that's really been the consistent story that I've seen. Otherwise, you're going to have to take months making sure that you learn your deficiencies. So, but otherwise, I think it's really the curriculum and where they placed things, because it seemed kind of hodgepodge at sometimes, but it's not bad at all compared to like boot camps that are just trying to maximize their profits, and they don't invest in the curriculum at all, and they just have the instructor, but then shuttle you to free resources.
Okay. How long is the curriculum? Self-paced, and I know that's a really stupid question, but if you were to do it 40 hours a week, how long would the curriculum be?
For me, if I didn't have the Ethereum DevCon Scholars thing and I didn't have the business, I probably would have finished it 3 months early, because there's people who are up to pace and they finished the 7-month boot camp with the full time in about 4 or 5 months. I would have been there if I didn't have the competing priority. So that was on me.
Okay, 4 to 5 months.
If you're up to par in doing like 60 to 80 hours a week.
Oh, okay. All right. What, like 7 months if you're doing it 40 hours?
It was part-time, I think, right? It was part-time, 7 months they expected.
Mine was
it was
supposed to be 8.
Yeah, I started in September and my deadline was like end of June, I think. So yeah, around 8 months or so.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Mine started in May and it was supposed to end in December, and I finished it like 3 months early, but I was able to devote like pretty much all of my time to it. So I was able to finish a little early. So yeah, if you're working another job or if you have something else going on, it's hard.
Okay, so part-time around 8 months. Teresa, you finished it a little bit early because you dedicated all of your time into it. It sounds like it's longer than a lot of other coding boot camps. And it also sounds like, you know, people are coming out of it without feeling like it was too much information, feeling like it was too much to retain. And that's the feeling that I'm getting from your descriptions. So we had talked about like maybe Vue, tossing Vue out, tossing Angular out. If you had to start tossing parts of this curriculum out, what would you want them to focus more on so you felt more confident about what you were retaining coming out of it?
I would probably say they need more focus on Node.js, GitHub, React. I didn't like how I liked React just itself, but not React Native. I would say JavaScript. That's really it. I would think more of the basics. I mean, I get it that like, you know, they want you to touch on certain stuff. Like they touched on Postgres, like SQL. I really like that because you're going to need to know how to play with it for like a week or so. But otherwise, I just think that like there was a lot of stuff that was just it was just too much, because I don't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. And that's the problem that because we do touch on Linux in the course too and stuff. And the Linux has been helpful because, you know, I was able to be like, after the boot camp, I was able to just take like a 3-month break. My brain was fried, still studying 8 months before. But the Linux part with the Ubuntu helped me go into the other program. And I will say this, Germany's really good with tech. So I think that overall, even though I have some gripes about where their curriculum is at with some things, it's still better than a lot of other boot camps. And you also it's like an international boot camp, all students from all over the world. So there's more diversity, and you're not locked in to a language. Like in Milwaukee, they'll teach you stuff that's to the local tech stack. And Milwaukee is behind like Silicon Valley and all these other emerging tech places. It depends on where you're at. So I'll give them that too.
Okay, so you felt Interesting. It feels like they lean stronger on the front end than they do the back end. Okay, that seems to be like just listening to everyone's story where they lean towards. Now, it's advertised as full stack. And Nicole, you had mentioned that you don't want to be a jack of all trades, so you didn't really like diving into Postgres. You get that they were exposing you to it. Does that sound?
I liked Postgres.
Okay.
I didn't like some of the other stuff like TypeScript and
Gotcha.
all the other stuff like Angular, because I know one's being deprecated. I think there's a version of Angular that's already deprecated already.
Okay. All right. So most coding boot camps that advertise as full stack are usually stronger on the back end, weaker on the front end. And so this is one that's stronger on the front end. And it sounds like they're lacking in getting you more comfortable with Node, getting you more comfortable with ORMs or anything connecting to the database. And maybe like if this is this long of a coding boot camp, I'm surprised. Like if I had to toss Angular and Vue out, I would bring in like connecting like Mongoose and Mongo, or like I'm personally a fan of like if you're a new developer, learn relational databases, understand how data connects, and then dive into like a non-relational database. So maybe like
they did have Mongoose and models and MongoDB and linking it in with Express. I mean, it was a whole MERN full stack. So there was quite a bit of back end for sure.
So would you say that you felt more comfortable coming out with like being a stronger front end developer than you were a back end developer?
Yeah, I definitely, because I liked front end more. I mean, I think I just focused on that more on the side, or, you know, like you said, you could, like most people are saying, you're not going to come out being job ready. So I focus a lot more on the front end, but, you know, I was still making full stack apps with MERN, you know, yeah, like the whole range in terms of you'd have Express in there, and we'd be running with Node, and then we have Mongoose models coming in from MongoDB. So we use like Atlas, I think it was called. So yeah, I mean, I was like copying and pasting a lot of that when I was trying to make my own apps. But so yeah, I wouldn't be able to branch out comfortably with just the knowledge from Career Foundry. You know, I had to learn a lot more on the job and things like that. So, would
you feel confident that you were ready for a back-end developer position?
No,
professional?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a stretch for sure. I mean, if it was just like Express and Mongoose and MongoDB, like those kind of models in between, then maybe. But you know, anything. You know, I did a lot of SQL at my job before this. So, I mean, that's kind of an unfair advantage, but so I know SQL pretty well, but they really lightly went over that in the Career Foundry course.
Okay. So it's more front end focused with what you come out of. Like they can advertise full stack all they want, but in my opinion, and I don't know if I said this before. I probably said this before. I don't believe in like a true full stack developer. Every developer specializes in the front end or the back end. Every developer that I've met. And so maybe that's a good thing. You know, like it sounds like they're not, when you get like a full stack position, for example, in Chicago, a lot of like people in Chicago, well, it depends, but like maybe a city like Chicago wants stronger back-end software engineers, where Career Foundry is a little bit more like spread out in trying to prepare you for jobs around the world, not just the United States. And that's very different. And so, you know, whatever, like if they chose to focus more on the front end, you know, I'm trusting that they did their research to say like, you're going to be more marketable across the world for this. So, I have to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I do agree that like maybe they need to find different things to supplement, even if it's diving back into the fundamentals instead of you learning 3 different frameworks versus just one framework. Because I have a strong opinion. You just need to learn one, and you can pick up any other framework. React is probably, I mean, Angular is more a full-fledged framework, but I think like if you learn React, you're easily going to be able to learn Vue, and you're going to be able to pick up Angular just fine. So, all right, I feel like that's a pretty good summary. And you know, keep in mind, I really I dug into it. I'm going to continue doing it for every episode. I dug into a lot of the things that kind of like brought up yellow and red flags in my head, because I want people to be aware of this. And I believe every coding boot camp they should, every student should be able to go to the coding bootcamp that serves them in their career goals, their personality, and they need to be able to have all of the questions lined up. Like if I'm cautious about these things, maybe some other people shouldn't be cautious about it. Maybe that's not their priorities, but I want them to have this information so they can pick the best coding bootcamp. That's why I challenge this so much. So overall, it sounds like you had pretty good experiences, different goals. It was interesting seeing you align that. So this is a good summary. If we had to give like one final piece of advice for aspiring developers, what would we say? Or maybe even like giving advice to your old self, like 8 months ago, what would it be?
I would say this is just when it comes down to picking your coding boot camp. I think, everyone learns differently. Some people are visual learners. Some people need to be taught in person. Some people need like an actual instructor. So that's huge. Like if you're really self-motivated and you like doing things and giving yourself goals and stuff, then this is a great course for you. But if you're someone who really needs someone giving you deadlines and saying you have this assignment due on this day, blah, 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 then this course would probably not be a good fit.
Okay. That's really good feedback.
Yeah.
I know I'm putting you on the spot. You didn't have time to prepare any of these answers, so.
Yeah, and hate to like go on this trope that, boot camps are only a start, but it really is. Like you got to be willing to, like, as soon as you're done, keep going every day. Think of what I liked is Career Foundry at the end said, what are some 3 apps you want to make? As a final thing is like, what kind of 3 apps would you be interested in making? And as soon as I finished the course, I was like, why don't I just start making one of those? And, you learn a whole bunch. You try a different framework. I tried Gatsby just to like try something new and, be willing to learn new things. And like, it's only going to make your development skills better. Like, don't just stop at the end of the boot camp. Be like, all right, I'm ready to go. No, you got to keep learning, keep pushing to GitHub, get those commits. Like, just, be a Stack Overflow expert.
I like it. How about you, Nicole?
I would agree with what they both said, and I would kind of figure out. So I knew that Career Foundry was the right bootcamp for me was because of the tech stack. I wanted something that was more Silicon Valley friendly or, startup friendly, MERN, other boot camps. I would say that they're definitely not heavy on back end. So I wouldn't recommend Career Foundry if you want to be a heavy back end developer. There's other boot camps that are better for that. Like I was looking at other ones, but the price range was my real issue. So it's like, if you want to be good, make sure that like you're investing in books, you're investing in mini courses, and you definitely know how to self-direct and lead your own time, because this is, based out of Berlin. They are international. You're not going to be totally left, to your own devices and abandoned. But yeah, I would say that.
Okay. All really good feedback. I appreciate that.
Well, and to piggyback on what Hunter said, I think that's a huge thing. I think a lot of the boot camps kind of, when you're first looking, they kind of promote, oh, if you do this boot camp, you're going to be ready to go. Your life is set. Your career has been changed. But it's like, it's such a process, and you kind of have to be prepared for that and for it to take so much longer. I mean, getting the first job is just near impossible. So that's something I guess they don't really tell you at the beginning, just like how difficult it is and how committed you have to be to continuing learning and to really be passionate about it. Because if you're not, it's going to be real hard.
I think that's really good advice. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend expecting to get a position currently before 6 months after you graduate the coding bootcamp. And I think that's a really realistic deadline. And I mentor so many people, I feel bad, but like they almost gave up everything to like try to become a developer in like 3 months on their own. And it's like, I think sometimes we have these unrealistic expectations. And I think that's really important that we even understand, even with a coding bootcamp that you put thousands into, once you graduate, it's a full-time job just trying to get a job. And it can be draining and stressful and discouraging, and like really get that imposter syndrome to be very loud in your head. And trust me, you're not alone with that. Many developers go through that. So all really good advice. I think that's a really good place to end with. Let's do our outros. Hunter, if people want to reach out to you, where could they reach you?
Just email, I guess. My email is Hunter, HUNTER 547 @gmail.
Okay. How about you, Teresa?
My portfolio website, teresaloafman.com, or on LinkedIn is probably the best.
Sounds good. How about you, Nicole?
To reach me on Twitter, I am crypto. This is all underscore. Crypto_Maven on Twitter, all underscore. Not all underscore, sorry, all, what was it, lowercase? And then on Instagram, it's all lowercase, Crypto Maven. And then my portfolio website is cryptomaven.co.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Nicole. All right, that's it. Stick around for a couple minutes afterwards. But this is a really good episode. Like I said, this feels more front-end focused. I would dive into like even the things that I brought up. I would just bring it up to the advisors. These are just questions, right? Have them answer these questions. And I think what's important is any good coding bootcamp, whatever their trade-offs are, they will sit down and talk with any prospect student and make sure that your goals, your career actually aligns with it, because they don't want a bad reputation. They don't want you to just take your money and leave reviews. Reviews are everything. So talk to the advisor if you have any concerns, but this is kind of a unique coding bootcamp in that it seems to advertise for like all places in the world, not just the United States, because we do a lot of US ones. See if you like it. And if you do decide to sign up, actually comment below, let me know. And I kind of want to follow your journey and see how it goes for you. But Hunter, Teresa, Nicole, thanks so much for joining me. It was a pleasure hearing your experiences and getting to meet you.
Thank you.